if you've never built a dashboard in Tableau. Oh, look at that. Fantastic. So I can be forgiven for all my sins. Basically, this is all about how to build a dashboard in Tableau. One of the things I love about FileMaker developers is they have no problem coming up to you and telling you exactly how it is. And I did a webinar last week. Actually, hands up, if anyone saw that webinar? Oh yeah, you don't count. Okay, my close friends, you don't count, right? You're all watching it, so I'll buy you beers. I meant like the other participants, so that's good. I'm glad that a lot of you haven't seen that webinar. Some of the ones that have seen it, and actually John Ward, I don't know if he's turned up yet. He hasn't, so I can say this, right? I'll say it quickly. He said he's going to turn up, I'll say it before he gets here. He came up to me last night at the party, and he just said, oh, I was talking to some people about this session and how I'm going to it. And they were like, oh, is it going to be a good session? And he was like, well, what Luke does is he makes FileMaker sexy, and I kind of want to get there and just hear about how sexy, what sexy stuff FileMaker is doing. And I'm not sure that he meant it as a compliment, but I certainly took it as a compliment. What I'm not going to be doing is getting into a huge amount of detail about Tableau. I will indeed be talking about the new connector that came out in FileMaker Server 16. But at the speakers dinner, there's a gentleman in the room, I won't name him, but we're all kind of having a bit of a giggle about different things in technology. And one of the things we talked about in Australia, where I'm from, is that, and I'll see some nods now, some of us remember phones when they worked like this. And Australia, who are like leading edge technologists, decided that the emergency number was going to be 000. So as you're lying there on the floor, 0, they could have made it like 999 and you'd be good to go, but it was like 000. As you'll see when the whole thing actually kicks off, I'm super passionate about this stuff. I've got to say, it's not so much about Tableau itself or FileMaker itself. I'm passionate about the disruptive technologies that are going on in the place. So coming to an event like this where I have some like-minded people, I'm interested to talk about things like being probably the last generation, and again, I reckon at least half of the people here are going to nod to this. I'm kind of the last generation that remembers that there was a world without computers, right? I'm hearing it. Remember like when we went to school? When we first went to school, no one even heard of computers. I actually thought it was a trend, like a pop group. I thought, oh, I wonder if I should get onto this or not. It's going to be like a fidget spinner. Anyone seen the fidget spinners? Like, I was thinking computers, it's like a fidget spinner. It'll be like a trend for a few weeks and then it'll go away. So we're all having a bit of a giggle about that at the speakers dinner, and then one of the fellas at the table is just kind of looking around wondering what the hell we're talking about, like as if there was a time without computers. More of you will probably remember there was a time when we had computers, but we didn't have the internet, right? We didn't have the web. The talk hasn't started. There's a few people walking in going, what's he doing? Like, why is he starting early? The talk hasn't started. This is like a tech check. We're going to start in just a few minutes. But yeah, there was a lot more of us remember when there wasn't an internet, right? Like when you had to go to the thing called an encyclopedia, and you couldn't Google stuff, And then in 2000s, we kind of got smartphones. In 10 years from 2007, when the iPhone came out, we got 2017, and I truly believe there's a disruptive technology that's about to hit us, and I've got some evidence that I'm going to show you towards the end of the session if we have time, and that's why I get kind of super passionate about this stuff. We haven't started yet. I think what I would like to do though is, hey Doug, there's a little bit of an exercise, just in case there's a few people that are hungover and kind of straggling and not quite in here yet, and they're not sure if we've started or not. We'll do a bit of an exercise. Actually, we're going to do two exercises. They say as a speaker, like I've rehearsed this thing, I don't know, 40 times I reckon, so I'm not supposed to change my material. I decided just this morning to change my material. I had to do it because my wife gave me a FaceTime from Sweden just to wish me luck, and my 3-year-old son, Nate, got on the phone, and he's there talking to me, and I was like, Nate, I've got to go, mate. I'm about to give a talk to hundreds of people. And he's like, oh, I talked to hundreds of people, but what present are you buying me? He's going on about the present I'm going to bring home from the trip. And so he finally got it. I'm like, there's a lot of adults that are going to be in the room, and I'm going to be talking to them. And he said, oh, really, Papa? Can you show me that? And as a really good father, as a good parent, I do what most parents do with their kids. I want to kind of screw with them a little bit. So I've got a 1-year-old daughter who's called Lily, and I've got a 3-year-old son who's called Nate. Lily won't get the joke, but in years to come, I'm going to show her this video, and she's going to say, why didn't you get me involved? I'm going to actually just take a video of you all, just to show Nate that I spoke to all these people at DevCon. And if you don't mind, just wait a few seconds. I'll kind of call you in. And can you just scream out really loud, "Hello, Lily. Hello, Nate." And that'll like really screw with him. It'll take years of therapy to get over it. I think it'll be a lot of fun. So I'm just going to put this thing onto video. And so the way I'm going to call you in, because it had to be, I don't want him to hear my voice. He'll see it coming. So it'll screw with him more if it's like a surprise. So I'll just kind of go 2, 1, and point at you. So I'll go. And when I do that, "Hello, Lily. Hello, Nate," if you don't mind. OK, so I'm going to start the video. I'm actually going to get myself in it first so they know that it was just Daddy at DevCon. So the video's going. Thank you. You can all help me. Thank you very much. No, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, we're going to start soon. Actually, I did this last year. I did this whole pre-session chat. It's all about me. I'm very selfish. It's to relax me. Psychologists say that I'm a self-monitoring extrovert, which is another way of saying I'm a masochist. So I love public speaking, but I'm really nervous about what people are thinking about me. So if you see me up here shaking, it's because I'm a self-monitoring extrovert, which is a masochist. So it's 9 o'clock. We're going to start, just to pay respect to all you people that turn up on time. But what I'd like to do to begin with, actually, and my little note here says start my stopwatch as well, because I've got all this stuff timed. So I'll just do that. You may have picked up an accent. I'm from Australia. And what's that? There's no accent. That sounded like an accent of someone I'm just about to talk about. So in Australia, there's this other little country that's nearby. It's called New Zealand. Now, you probably haven't heard of it, but don't worry, no one in Australia's heard of it either. These guys in New Zealand, they've got this cool thing called a Maori war cry, right? It's called the haka. And I'm seeing a lot of people have heard of the haka, right? New Zealand teams will kind of use the haka when they start a sporting event to intimidate the opposition. In Australia, we have a war cry as well. But Australia's being a lot more intelligent than New Zealanders. Our war cry is actually quite sophisticated, right? It's a lot harder to learn. But if ever there was an intelligent audience, it'd have to be today. So what I want to do is I want to teach you the Australian war cry. We're going to use it. And to do it respectfully, you've got to really get into it. And I was a bit worried about doing it, but the way you all just said hello to my daughter and my son shows that I've got a crowd with a bit of a sense of humour. So here it is. I'm going to teach it to you. It's really complicated. If I say Aussie, you say oi. If I say Aussie, 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 you say oi, oi, oi. Now, I've written a white paper on this. You can download it from the website because it is very complicated. I know it's really hard, and if you don't understand how it works, just keep quiet. It's okay. But what we're going to do is to start this session off, we're going to do the Australian war cry. And anyone that's standing out there is going to wonder what the hell is going on here. So here we go. Are you ready? Aussie, Aussie, Aussie! 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 Aussie, Aussie, Aussie! Thank you very much. That was very good of you. Thank you. All right, let's go on with the agenda, shall we? FileMaker want me to... Woo! Woo! All right, so what are we doing today? What are we doing? I knew I'd get lost, so I was starting with the agenda. Gary, who I saw speak yesterday, changed the title of his slide to this, and I thought this is a great way to pitch it. It's not really an agenda. This is really what I'm sincerely hoping that you get out of this session, in all seriousness. I want to make sure that you walk out of here knowing what Tableau is. I'm hoping that you know why you might want to use Tableau. And finally, I want to make sure that you know how to build a dashboard in Tableau in under 10 minutes. If I succeed in these three things, then I'm hoping you kind of got what you paid for. If this is not what you're up for, so if you're really good at Tableau, unless you're Jordan, then you're going to stay here. But if you're really good at Tableau and you know what you're doing, I'm going to be going through some pretty basic stuff. I'll take absolutely no offense to you just walking out and going to a more technical session. The dashboard that I'm going to show you how to build is really designed for business users. Now, you can do some really cool graphics in Tableau, and it's really slick. and you can pitch it to those kind of users. You can do some really cool technical stuff, and Vince in the FileMaker community has got some videos on how you can do two-way technical communications, so you can click stuff in Tableau and it makes things happen in FileMaker. So there's some really cool stuff you can do technically. My stuff's really focusing more on business, so I just wanted to kind of make that clear right from the start. When we talk about why you might want to use Tableau, I'm actually going to start the whole session with that. I'm going to talk about what I'm doing with my clients and why they use it. And then right at the very end, if we have time, I want to talk about the future of Tableau, or indeed the future of business intelligence generally. Because I sincerely believe that Tableau and that business intelligence is just the tip of the iceberg. What I want to do is a little bit of time traveling with you at the end if we have time. I'm going to take you forward 10 years. I'm going to look back at this year and how it might look in 10 years' time. And now, I'll kind of reveal the secret. I think where we're going with BI and Tableau is into AI, into artificial intelligence. But I'm not into kind of Armageddon. Like, I'm not thinking that you should go and buy shares in farmersonly.com. I actually think that what we're going to do is see an enterprise-level AI. And why I'm telling why I'm telling this to you right now is because the fundamental principles of artificial intelligence are exactly the same as the fundamental principles that you need to understand to build a dashboard in Tableau. So when you hear about these principles today, don't just think, oh, this is great, I can go and build a Tableau dashboard. What I want you to think is I'm setting myself up for what could possibly be the most disruptive technology of our era. More disruptive than when computers turned up and we were at school. I'm not being rude, she admitted to me earlier on. More important than when the internet started. More important than 2007. And this is not going to be just my opinion. I'm going to provide evidence for you. I'm going to show you why I'm saying this. A lot of you are here for the technical stuff, so I'll just tell you a little bit how I'm going to show you this dashboard. There are two things we're going to cover. One is how you would build a dashboard in Tableau using this great new thing that's come out in FileMaker Server 16, which is the connector, the data connector. I'll also show you how you can build a dashboard in Tableau if you don't have FileMaker Server 16, so using some old school techniques. I'm also going to provide you with sample data, and I'm going to have an 8.5-minute video that I'm going to play because I want you to be able to play that video again next Monday, download my sample data, and you can follow the steps exactly. So if you're watching this and you can't quite follow it, or I'm moving a little bit, which reminds me I need to slow down. People in Sweden, where I do a lot of work, and in the US say that I should slow down. So where's Johan? You're normally sitting there, you're normally giving me that like slow down sign. If I am going too fast for you, don't worry about it. On Monday, play the video back and just pause it. Or if I'm going, for the Aussies in the room, if I'm going too slow for you, put it on double speed and just watch the video again at double speed. You'll be able to do all of this without paying a cent. I'm going to tell you how you can get all this happening for free, and I love the arguments I have with people who say, no, you can't get proper free versions of Tableau, it only goes for 2 weeks, or it doesn't do this. That's all rubbish, right? Everything you see today is using a free version of Tableau. I'll happily take that debate on with a bottle of wine this evening. So I told you that I'd start with a bit of an introduction as to why. You know, why are you here? Like, why are we going to go and learn Tableau to build dashboards? This is the hangover session of DevCon, so I'm not going to ask you, I am going to ask you a question, but it's rhetorical, so you don't have to answer it. If you're going to close your eyes and think about it and have a quick nap, I won't be offended. That means you've got a hangover though, we know you got up to last night. I just want to ask you a question that I'm truly curious about. Have any of you been thinking about what it might be like to have a conversation with your digital self? To have a conversation with an artificially intelligent program that scrapes all of the information that you're collecting every day that you exist. And as you all know, no surprises to this room, we have a rich amount of information that's being gathered about us. I like to call it the digital shadow. People that I like reading call it the digital shadow. I've got some colleagues in Australia who have created biofeedback devices that you can stick to your skin, and it tells your iPhone what your skin temperature is. And why that's interesting is they've got a ton of data that strongly correlates fluctuations in your body temperature with your emotions, the way you're feeling about different things. So now imagine going through life and going through all these different events where your phone already knows where you are, who you're speaking with, what you wrote to them in your email, what you said to them on the phone. So you've got this really rich digital shadow, but you've also got this information about how you're feeling that you can map with it. So just as we use Siri to say, where's the nearest pizza joint, you could ask your digital self, how much work did I do for this client last week and have they paid their bill? Just as you would ask Siri today, what's the weather going to be like tomorrow? You could ask your digital self, what's my mood going to be like tomorrow? And your digital self knows from your calendar what you're doing tomorrow, and it knows what your mood was when you did those types of activities in the past. So there's no reason why the digital self can't predict your mood for tomorrow. The number one question, I've written a blog on this. I really am looking forward to meeting my digital self. It's going to be a lot of fun. The first question I'm going to ask is this. Hey, digital self, can you please tell me what obstacles are standing in my way? What's stopping me from becoming the very best person I can be? The very best dad, the very best FileMaker developer, the very best management consultant. What's stopping me? And now there's no reason why the AI couldn't have a go at answering that. It would, however, need to know about your purpose in life. And there are ways you can get the AI to work that out. Luckily for us, it's a lot easier to work this out for a company. The purpose of a company is often written down in vision statements and mission statements. And if you're lucky, you've got strategies and goals and maybe even key performance indicators to measure that stuff. So you can actually write artificial intelligence so that you've got Siri for the business. The reason I know this is because this is exactly what I'm doing right now with Google from their Sydney office in Australia for the 6th largest private company in the world, which happens to be a confectionery company. It's Mars bars and Snickers. They own a ton of other stuff as well. But it turns out they're the 6th, and it's here in the US, the head office. They're a really big company. We've got a project that has to go live, and we're using FileMaker to do it. We've got a project that's got to go live this year, and they're going to be able to say to their phone which machine's most likely going to break down tomorrow. And this thing's going to have a go at telling them which machine is most likely going to break down. And it has to go live this year, and it's going to be presented to the Mars family in February next year, so it's on a deadline. You'd be forgiven for wondering, what the hell is this guy on about? Why are we talking about all of this stuff? And as I alluded to earlier, the principles of all of this information, this work that I do, are exactly the same between artificial intelligence and business intelligence. And understandably, FileMaker, when we come to do these talks, say that what we should do is tell you, the audience, why we feel qualified to give the topic that we're speaking on. Now, my background is actually engineering and psychology, and I've got some qualifications in business intelligence, and now I'm getting right into artificial intelligence. But I think the reason I'm qualified is because of the work that I do. And that was just one example of where I'm using this very same concepts we're going to talk about today. Another example is work that I've done for a Fortune 500 company, Unilever. I've talked about this at other DevCon, so I won't go on about it, but in summary, the short story is we wrote a program that gets sent out to 80 planners, and the email basically said, hi Fred, I think you're about to make a mistake. I think that mistake is going to be made in about 1.5 weeks' time, and it's going to cost the company probably about $1 million. Let's not make that mistake, shall we? The director that I worked for went on record, and he allows me to use this, went on record saying that that program, which again I was using FileMaker to do all the algorithms, that program he suggests saved the company millions of dollars in a matter of weeks because it went out to 80 different people. So this ability to be able to tell people, like when people say, oh, I need this FileMaker solution to be in real time, like if I hear that, I say, well, you're old school, dude. If it's real time, it's already happened. There's not a thing you can do about it. What you want is a program that's going to tell you about tomorrow and the next day. So I wanted to give you 3 examples of my work. I've given you 2 of them. The last one only takes 1 minute, and I'm allowed to play this because this is the who am I part. This is a video, it is a commercial, but it's a 1-minute commercial, and it's about the app that I've built in FileMaker. And really, I'm obviously like a FileMaker fan because FileMaker allows me to bring all my kooky stuff together into an application that I can show you in under a minute. And I'll show that to you right now.
Are you waking up in the middle of the night trying to understand where your business is going? Well, now you can have a list of everything that's important in the palm of your hand with just one business app. You can easily see profits. Just tap to go into details, where you can see, for example, your opportunities and your biggest threats. And Siri is also there to help you.
What are the biggest threats to my business? Set up an appointment with Fred for 10 a.m. tomorrow.
now you can go back to sleep without any concerns. At least until tomorrow.
Thank you. I'm so pleased to hear you giggle. I do these talks to different industries, and I kid you not, I've done it in front of 100 people once, and you could hear a pin drop at the end of it. And I'm like, did I go too far? Did they not get the joke? Jordan, if you didn't get the joke, just ask some of the older people next to you. They'll explain it to you. All right, so that's really how I use FileMaker. But what you're here to hear about is dashboards, right? So I better do the right thing and just say that when I talk about a dashboard, what I mean is a tool or an app that summarizes the most important information in your FileMaker solution, or summarizes the most important information in the business, right? And provides that summary to the user, but then allows the user to drill into details, to interact with that summary. For me, that's like my shortest definition of what a dashboard is. These days, it has to run on multiple devices. And when I say multiple devices, I do mean very small ones as well. When I say dashboard, I mean that if you've got your sales representative driving out to a customer, and as they pull into the car park, right, there's no reason why the watch on their hand can't work out from the GPS where they are, and therefore which customer they're visiting. And therefore, there's no reason why, as they're about to get out of their car, they glance down at their watch and they see this on their watch. So they know that before they walk into this client, this customer is performing bad this month because it's a red arrow. If it was green, they're performing good, but it's red, so they're performing bad. The arrow's pointing up, so they're getting better. So okay, we'll be nice to them. They're having a bad month, but they're improving. The arrow's hollow. If it was like really bright and filled with red, it means it's a big contributor. But the fact that it looks like this means that I know this is a small contributor to the business. So I shouldn't spend all day here. So my dashboard just told me in under a second, by glancing at it, that when I walk into this customer, the first thing I'm going to say is, I noticed you haven't been buying our products this month. Is there anything I can help you with? You also have Siri and AI. So there's no reason why you couldn't plug your earphones in, your Bluetooth earphone, and just say to the phone, like, why are they performing bad? And it can tell you why they're performing bad. So when I think about dashboards, this is what I'm thinking about. And this is already happening with FileMaker. So I've had this product out in the market now for a couple of years. Danny Mack from New Millennium, who's sitting right over there, has implemented this at one of his sites here in the States. So this is real for me. This is not science fiction. And I've got to tell you something. Sometimes this sounds a little bit like science fiction. Like, how are you predicting a mistake that someone's going to make? And you know what? It's really pretty straightforward. In fact, it's so simple. When I start a project, when I'm thinking about the information architecture, there's only 3 things I need from the client. And if you imagine you've got a FileMaker database that has I call it, it's normally like an event log or an event cube or something, but it's one single table with events in it. And all I need to know is 3 things. What was the date that the event occurred? Thank you very much. What was the actual event? So give me some text about it. Now, if it's an unstructured description, then in an unstructured way, you might have this whole sentence about what just happened. But typically, it's actually quite structured. And in most of your solutions, it'd be like one field saying that on this date, this product was purchased by this customer from this sales rep. But there's some text describing the event. So those things are pretty straightforward, right? Even people in New Zealand would get that. The third one is a little bit more complicated, right? You have to measure the event. You have to have some way of understanding what value to attribute to the event. But that's not that complicated either, because if we go through some of the examples of where you see this in an organization, in a sales order, the date, customer, product, sales rep, how many did they buy? How much did it cost? What was the revenue? You might be able to work out the profit. So the value is, what was the profit that we made from that event? If you're looking at a timesheet or something, then it could be the hours that a person spent working on a certain activity. General ledger, if you're into finance, you know what a general ledger is. This is just a record that says every time you spend some money, this is what I spent it on, this is the date I spent it. When you earn some money, this is how much I earned, this is the date I earned it, and this is who I earned it from. So this simple way of looking at things applies to a lot of things in business. Now, as we start to look at the dashboard, I want to take an angle that comes from the business end, because my day job, the thing that puts food on the table, is actually management consulting. It's not building FileMaker solutions. And there's been some studies to show that a great way to look at this stuff is to take it from the customer's perspective, right? So if you're an in-house developer, then this could be your boss or a colleague. The lights just got really bright. But so now I'm not sure if people are leaving. That might be a good thing for you. If you could just turn them down a little bit, it's kind of like really bright. So if you're an in-house developer, then it might be your boss, or do we want to compete? Do we want to have a go? Yeah? Okay, on the count of three, let's just raise the roof. On the count of three, 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm going to like edit that later on, and that was going to be based on something I said, but that's just between you and me. Let's keep that between us. So, your boss or your client says something like, look, I want to summarize for you the most important information in the business, and I want to be able to drill into details on the fly. So what do you do next? Do you, A, open up your FileMaker solution and start looking through the tables, and you might start saying, I'll go through this table, and maybe I could summarize it over here and put a table there and put a chart there, and start thinking about how do you summarize this information. Is that how you would do it? Or would you, B, ask a simple follow-up question? Something like, hey boss, what are you trying to achieve with the Tableau dashboard? We talked about why right at the start. Like, what are you trying to achieve with this? Turns out, studies show that 4 out of 5 people go for A and fail. 1 out of 5 go for B and succeed. If you want to see proof of that, just Google BI failure rates, and you'll see some studies from Gartner where they've done a lot of this work. But let's pretend that we're going for B. So we ask, what are you trying to achieve? And if I was doing some work for a small company, I'm going to guess the answer is going to be something like this. My name's Fred, it's my company, my colleagues are actually my family. And you know what? We just want to spend more time hanging out with the kids and going on holidays. So we just want to work less, but we want to earn more money. That's pretty much what they would say. But even with something as straightforward and almost as obvious as that, you can start thinking when you make the dashboard, I need to measure how much time they're spending on different activities, how profitable those activities are, and if I can do a visualization in Tableau or in any tool that shows them this, that shows them you spend this much time on these activities and here's how much profit you make. You spend this much time on these activities and here's how much profit you make. Well, then you can start encouraging them to spend time on those activities that make profit, stop doing the stuff that doesn't make profit. So you're already thinking this stuff through. And you could build this dashboard, I just skipped a slide. You could build this dashboard in a number of ways. You could just grab FileMaker and just using very standard tools and with a minimum amount of time, minimum amount of work, start adding summary parts to your layouts. You could do some charting. You might be fancy and use the auto charting tool that came out a few versions ago. You can start throwing charts onto layouts. You could also do it in FileMaker and build 100% FileMaker native pivot tables and pivot charts. I actually presented this at DevCon a few years back, and the session is still up on the, or at least it was last time I looked, in the FileMaker training area of their website. So if you want to look at how you build, and it's not using web viewers and JavaScript and data APIs, no. This is using just vanilla flavored FileMaker to build pivot tables and pivot charts. There's a session on that. If that's my wife, can you tell her that we're not going to be finished until about 10 o'clock? The other way you could do it is actually build a dashboard app the way I've done it, where you want to control every single pixel on the screen. So when I want to do a dashboard where I want complete control over it, I jump back into FileMaker, and that was the video that you saw at the start. And I actually did a whole session on how to run your whole business with just one app. And that was at a previous DevCon too. And if you can't find it, let me know, and I'm sure I can track it down for you. But I won't go into any more detail today. The last thing I'm going to look at before we get into Tableau, and some of you are thinking, oh my God, will you shut up and just show us the Tableau stuff? The last thing I want to say is Excel is where a lot of people go as well. You can export the data into Excel and build a dashboard in Excel. And you guessed it, at a previous DevCon, I showed people how to build dashboards in Excel, and there's videos on that. So if you want them, let me know. I'm not going to go into any more detail today, unless you want to come to me at lunch and I can show you some of the stuff. All right, today we're talking about Tableau. Here's the good news. When you go to build a dashboard in Tableau, it is completely free. So Google Tableau Public, or if you can read the URL, just go to that URL right there and download the free version of Tableau that you can run on your desktop. Like I say, some people like to argue with me about this. I must be cheaper than everybody else because I found it like straight away, and it's been doing everything that I need. The one thing this free version won't do, and I think this is actually really clever from Tableau, you can build your wonderful dashboards, you can do all sorts of fancy stuff in there, but you can't save the results to your desktop or to your local network. You can only save it up to their public server, which is actually pretty cool. So you can still save your work and come back to it later, but it's public. So in other words, you can't really take it into live production for your company without paying them some money. So once you get this thing working, then you can go back and work. And a question right at the start was about the licensing, and it's like FileMaker. You know, there's no simple answer. It depends on exactly what you want to do with it. But the fact they let you go and get into it for free is good enough for me. So everything you see from this point onwards is using the free version of Tableau that, Denny, does not expire in 2 weeks. You can actually just keep using it. So these guys that will argue about it will tell you it's a trial version. It ain't. You can just keep using it as much as you want. So I need to tell you, before I show you this video of how the dashboard comes together, there are some things that you really need to know. In my opinion, these are the fundamental things you need to think about before you build this dashboard. First thing is, how are you going to connect Tableau to FileMaker? And there's really, there's tons of ways of doing it, but there's 3 that I'm interested in. The first one is the new way of doing it that just came out this year. So I'll certainly be covering that. And in the video, you'll see using the first method. I'm going to actually connect to FileMaker through the data connector. But you can just as easily grab your data from FileMaker, dump it into a CSV or into an Excel file, open Tableau, the free one, and then just import it from the CSV or Excel. And the thing about that, and actually I talked to someone about this yesterday as well, how far you can go with this, you can just run an automatic script at midnight, right, that dumps the data from FileMaker into a CSV, and then open Tableau and it pulls that data up. The downside of that is your data could at any time be up to 24 hours old. But I'm sure a lot of you can think about applications where a dashboard is just fine if the data in there is never more than 24 hours old. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how you do that as well, which is great if you've got older versions of FileMaker, then you can still go home and on Monday build this very same dashboard that I'm going to show you today. So the first screen you'll get when you download Tableau will look very much like this. So over there on the left, you can see that you have to decide how you're going to connect to your data. And as I said, and actually, even if you've never done anything in Tableau, do me a favor, don't try and set up a data connector straight away. Like screw that. Just get Tableau, get it in Excel, and just pull it from Excel into Tableau. That's the easiest way to get started with Tableau. So that's what you're seeing on the screen now. When you say connect from Excel, it'll just say, here's a dialog box, where's your Excel file? You grab it, and you'll end up with a table in Tableau that looks almost identical to the table that you have in FileMaker and almost identical to the table that you have in Excel. Before we start doing anything with this data in Tableau, you'll start seeing some terms that Tableau uses that you may not be familiar with. Now, some of the stuff you will be familiar with. So things like page, filters, marks, data sources, worksheets, sheets. These are things that you've spoken about before and that you understand from either FileMaker or from Excel. But the first ones there might be new to you. You may not have heard of dimensions and elements and measures. So what I'm going to do, and I'm going to do an exercise that I'm trying to skip over stuff that I've done at previous DevCons, but this is like my favorite exercise. So I'm going to quickly do this. Hands up if you've seen this before. Sorry guys, that's like less than 2% of the crowd, so we're doing this. I'm going to get you to think in multiple dimensions. So here's how we're going to do it. If you're hungover, close your eyes, have a nap. If you're not hungover, close your eyes, and in your mind's eye, is that what they call it? Whatever that funny term those pop psychologists use. In your mind, think about a three-dimensional object. So think about a cube, a cube that's 1 meter high, 1 meter wide, and 1 meter deep. Okay, you're now thinking in 3 dimensions. Let's get a second cube and put it in exactly the same position. So you've now got 2 cubes in the same spot that are both a meter high, meter wide, meter deep. It's really hard to distinguish between these 2 cubes unless I bring in a 4th dimension and say that one's red and one's blue. Now imagine that the red one is hot and the blue one is cold. That's a 5th dimension. And the red hot one is soft and the blue cold one is hard. There's texture, our 6th dimension. So either keep napping or open your eyes and check to make sure no one's stolen anything from you. You know what FileMaker people are like. So you just thought about things in 6 dimensions. And I'm hoping you can see that this can go on and on and on and on and on. You can have an infinite number of dimensions, and it's not rocket science. So don't be scared off if someone says to you, oh, I build a 16-dimensional model, how good am I? Well, you can say, yeah, I'll learn how to do that in a few minutes at DevCon. We can now build 16-dimensional models because when people in business intelligence are talking about dimensions, really think of it this way. Here is one really big table in FileMaker, and the fields are, guess what, dimensions. So if you have a field that has text in it, then in BI world, they'll call that a dimension. And if you want to get really fancy, they might try to trick you and say, well, actually, we have a customer dimension, and there are sub-dimensions of the customer dimension. Well, the sub-dimensions are territory, industry, they're just more fields in FileMaker. So when you see dimensions in Tableau, and you're about to see it right now in the video, when you see dimensions, just think FileMaker field. Unless you have a field in FileMaker that doesn't have text in it, but instead has numbers in it. If your field in FileMaker has numbers in it, then the guys in the BI world will probably call that a measure or a value. And in Tableau, they call it a measure. So a measure is just a FileMaker field with numbers in it. Dimension is just a FileMaker field with text in it. And if people get even fancier and start talking about entities and elements, then in our speak, that's just unique text within the field. So if you're talking about the industry, then the elements, there's only 3 elements: manufacturing, services, and government. So an element is just a single occurrence of the text that's in that field. Is that making sense? They're all getting not too many head shakes, mostly nods, except Doug over there, he's kind of waving his head. That's because you stayed up too late. That's not because I'm doing a bad job up here. This here is the main screen that you're going to see in Tableau. Hands up if you've seen or built pivot tables in Excel. It's like half. You guys have no problem with this, I'm sure. If you've seen a pivot table in Excel, it's almost identical to what they're going to be doing in the main screen where you're going to do all your work in Tableau. It's like building a pivot table in Excel. For the other half of the audience that haven't seen pivot tables before, the way it works is roughly like this. There's our dimensions on the left that I just mentioned, and there are our measures that I also mentioned. In the video, I'm going to grab a dimension and I'm going to put it either in the row field or the column field. So if you imagine, I'm just going to create a table where I can actually put the elements within the dimension. I can have them as rows or I can have them as columns. And then right there in the middle, the biggest area is where I drop my numbers. So it's going to show me a table of numbers. And if it's a chart, then it's going to show me a line chart that looks something like this. So no big deal. We've seen line charts in FileMaker as well. When you're in Tableau, over there on the right, you'll see this Show Me tab. Click on that because you're going to see a whole bunch of charts. And one of the things about Tableau is it kind of has charts like FileMaker has charts, if those charts in FileMaker took tons of steroids. The stuff you can do in Tableau with charting is just like amazing. And a good portion of the people I talk to use Tableau for that reason. Not me. I'm actually kind of okay with the charts in FileMaker because I'm more into the business stuff. But I've got to say it, there's like really cool stuff you can do with charting in Tableau. So you can do basic stuff like we do in FileMaker, sort it and do all these different things. But here is like the take-home message. So if there's only one thing you're going to remember of this whole talk, it's the jokes about New Zealand. If there's a second thing you're going to remember, right, then it's going to be this. And that is that when you look at things in Tableau, they are interdependent. And what that means is if you've got 6 charts on the screen, you can not only can you interact with the chart, which you can't do in FileMaker, you can interact with the chart, and as you interact with this chart, these other charts are paying attention. So if you remove a customer or filter out a brand from that chart, then this revenue chart will instantly show you the new revenue. So there's like an infinite number of things you can do with a very simple dashboard. And if you're interested in the mathematics of it, I can tell you later on how to work this out with Pascal's triangle, that if you've got a really small company with 10 customers, 10 products, and 10 sales reps, if you've heard the answer before, you're not allowed to yell it out, but have a guess at how many interactions you could look at in a dashboard in Tableau with just 10 customers, 10 products, 10 sales reps. No, Doug, it's not 1,000. I know it's tempting to say 1,000, isn't it? There's 1,000 individual transactions that you could look at, but you say, I want to look at a group of companies that bought this one product, or a group of products sold by a group of sales reps to a group. So there's actually 8.5 billion different things you could look at. 8.5 billion for a company that has 10 customers. I mean, I'm not sure that anyone here has less than 10 customers. So for all intents and purposes in your companies, there's an infinite number of things you can do. So the fact that you can do this interdependence thing is so cool. Because then when you're looking at the different parts of the screen, you can be working over here and the rest of the screen's updating. And you'll see that in the video that's coming up. You can also do drag and drop, which is, it's only a minor thing, but it's worth noting. Because Tableau's reason for being is to build dashboards, as you move stuff around, it all snaps into place nicely. And then, as I said before, as you click on charts, it'll all kind of update itself. And this will make a bit more sense when we watch it in the video. The other thing you can do in Tableau, which is kind of going to screw with your brain a little bit because it's quite different to anything you've done in FileMaker, is this thing that they call storyboarding, or creating stories in Tableau. And what that basically means is when you have a dashboard, because there are 8.5 billion different things you could be doing on a very small company, you can imagine that as you find something interesting in your dashboard, if you want to send that off to someone in another country, it can be a little bit tricky to get them to do the same kind of filtering that you did. So Tableau says, well, that's all right. Just set the filter up the way you want it, and then write a little paragraph at the top about it, and save it. And then change it if you like, and write another paragraph, and write another paragraph. And so when you send it to somebody else, they can just click on your chapters in your story. And as they click on these different parts of your story, the dashboard is changing appropriately. And what's really cool is when they get to a certain part of the story, there's nothing stopping them from continuing to interact with the dashboard. So they can see what you did, but they can interact even further. So they might say, oh, I'm interested in what's happening in my territory. So you're going to see that in the video as well, so don't let that put you off. Just like as in FileMaker, it's really cool to publish stuff in Tableau, and as you would probably hope, what you see in your Tableau desktop client looks almost identical to what people will see when they use a standard web browser. And you can do all the interactive stuff, and it's exactly the same. So let's do this, shall we? Let's bring all this together. We're going to build a dashboard in under 10 minutes that I think demonstrates you can quickly spot interesting trends and interesting patterns within your business. You can indeed create a compelling story for your boss or for your client that hopefully answers the question you asked them earlier, which is what are you trying to get out of this? And you can do it very, very quickly. So I'll get the Techo guys to get ready to turn the volume up on this one, and we'll play this video.
Hi there. In this video, I'm going to show you how to build a dashboard using Tableau and FileMaker. Now I'm going to use the free version of Tableau. It's called Tableau Public, or Tableau Desktop Public Edition, and it's just fine for connecting to the new data connector in FileMaker Server 16. Now you'll get a startup page similar to this when you open up Tableau for the first time. You can see over on the left you've got different ways of connecting to data. You can connect to a file or you can connect to a server. And the one we want here is the second one down underneath connect to a server. It's called Web Data Connector. It'll open up a dialog box where we can put in the URL that points to the FileMaker server that has our data, obviously. Now, my good friend Johan Hedman at Aditiki in Sweden has set up FileMaker Server 16 on a secure connection. You can see the HTTPS, Aditiki's domain name, and then the rest of it there, FMI REST Tableau FM Connector, is pretty much the standard URL that most implementations will use, because in FileMaker Server 16, you've got yourself a pre-made connector from Tableau to FileMaker. So we type in the database name, the layout name, the account name we're going to log on with, and of course the password that we need to get into that data. Click on Import FileMaker Data, and after a few seconds you'll have a screen showing you all the different fields that you've got in your FileMaker database. And clicking on Refresh the Data, we can see the data from the FileMaker database as well. Come on down here and click on Sheet 1, and we can start creating our dashboard. Now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the profit, and I want to check out how much money this company is making. And it looks like it's $174,000 over about 3 years. So let's look at that profit again, and we'll base it on time, but this time let's look a little bit closer into the quarters as well, and let's look at it here on a chart instead of a table. So we've now got a table and a chart of profit. Let's look at profit again, but let's look at it by customers this time. And let's use a chart to show us that we don't see anything terribly interesting. It's a pretty good spread of profit across the various customers. If you look at employees, which are probably our sales reps, same again, pretty good spread of profit. But if we look at products, we see something very interesting. There is some negative profit down the bottom. If we color the profit, we can get an even better look if we, let's say, make negative red and positive green. We can see very clearly there's some products that are losing money. So this is something interesting we're going to want to show the owners when we get around to giving them a look at this dashboard. Let's duplicate this sheet, and this time we're going to create a similar chart, but this is to do with product size. We can see here as well that small products have got a negative profit. If we look at brand, it's pretty average. So let's just get the color back to automatic. We don't need to see red here because these are all positive profits for brand. And we're pretty much ready to make our dashboard. At the top, we'll put the table of profit by year. Then we'll put the chart of profit by quarter. Over there on the right, we're going to put the profit by product. Now underneath the chart, let's whack in the profit by product size. Then underneath that, the profit by product brand. Let's get rid of all these titles because they're just getting in the way of the dashboard. I don't need them. So I'm going to hide all of the titles, get rid of that legend. I don't need that either. I'm going to resize the layout a bit, make it a bit wider so it fits on my screen. I might actually go into these and resize them too. The table can be smaller at the top. We'll fill it to fit the entire
During the editing, I was really tempted to speed this part up, but I didn't want to do that because this is all done in real time, so you're actually building this dashboard in 8.5 minutes. But this is just some boring formatting that you kind of need to do.
That looks pretty good. Let's have them all fill their entire windows. This just makes it look a little bit neater as we use it on different devices. So we're going to fit all of these to their entire view. Let's do it over here on the
good bits coming
as well. So we've got our dashboard pretty much working. Now the great thing about this is that it's interactive. So if I just select all of the profit, all of the products I should say that have made a positive profit, and then click this filter button, it means all of the other windows will react to changes I make. Let's do the same thing over here where we've got product size, connect all the filters up, and in fact we don't need to do it anywhere else, just those two. So when we make changes to these two areas of the dashboard, the rest of the dashboard changes alongside of it. Now we can create ourselves a storyboard. So the first thing I'd like to do is show the customer that their actual profit based on the data they've given me is 175,000 US dollars. So our actual profit is 174. Now if I duplicate this dashboard and make one change, which is to exclude small products. So what if we were to only sell medium and large products? Well, as you can see, our profit becomes 209,000 rather than 174. So just by getting rid of our small products, a bit of SKU rationalization, we could have increased our profit. Not to mention the savings of not having to sell and not having to administer all of the business to sell small products. So we've got an increase of $35,000, which is about a 20% increase just by removing our small products. Can we go further than this? Sure we can. Let's have a look over here at the products again, and there's still a few products making a loss. So what if we just pick all of the products that actually sold for a profit? If we do that, our total profit comes in at 229,000. So again, we've increased our profit for those 3 years of operation had we not sold any products that are being sold at a loss. So our increase now isn't 35,000, it's gone up to 229, so that's 55,000, which is about a 30%, 32% increase in our profit. So we could have made 32% more profit just by cleverly selecting which products we sell. If we go back to this starting point, let's get rid of this title because that's not required, and let's save this whole thing up to a web server. I need to log on with my Tableau account. This is a free account, as I say, it's part of Tableau Public. Just get my email and password in there, and this is going to now upload not just the dashboard, but this storyboard that has different points selected in the dashboard. So let's just give the whole thing a name so that when it saves it up onto the server, we know how to get back to it. This will take a few seconds.
It was done on an iPhone tethered to the internet, so it wasn't any great connection.
Once that's done,
it all worked in just a couple of seconds.
In a web browser for us. So here it is. Here's our storyboard loaded up into our web browser. Now we can check this out. We can click on different parts of the story if we are the client, and not only do we see the commentary that's at the top, but we can understand how those numbers came together. In fact, the user can even continue interacting with the dashboard as they look at the storyboard. So in this case here, perhaps the customer wants to see what it would be like to sell all of the products that made a profit, but these two little products down the bottom here, he or she wants to continue selling those two products even though it is at a slight loss. We can see what the total profit is, thereby actually interacting with this dashboard that we've just seen, and we've understood the story given to us. Thanks very much for watching, and bye for now.
So that's it. That's the video. Now, thank you. Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. The information that's in there, although it's like sample data, did it make sense? Like the idea is, here's a dashboard that you can go back to your client with, and you can say, actually, you want to make more money? Just stop selling those products. So remove that part of your company, and you make a ton more profit. Honest to God story, this is exactly what I did with a client in the 90s, where it took me weeks to do the analysis. I worked for a factory. This was one of my first jobs, actually, when I went into when I started. BizNet is 20 this month, so I just saw that on LinkedIn like yesterday. Oh, I've been working with BizNet for 20 years. So about 20 years ago, it was one of my first jobs. I went into a factory and said, I'll do this kind of stuff for you, but old school. And turned out they were making signs for lots of different customers. And when they made signs, I actually wrote a program that showed them their profit, not only when the project was finished, but halfway through the project, so they could see what their profit was looking like as the project was going on. And what we found out, before we even started doing this real-time stuff, was I just did an analysis of historical data, and I went back to the owner, I said, do you know that every time you do a job for a hairdresser, you lose money? Like, it's not low profit, it's negative profit. You're losing money with hairdressers. When you do a job for a university, you make tons of money. And the great thing about working with small factories, this was the owner of the factory, he heard that and just walked straight out the office, went into the sales room, said, everybody stop, true story this is, and said, right, if any hairdressers call, hang up on them. You can even be rude to them. Went to the factory, stopped all jobs for hairdressers, right? Literally did this. This is a true story. Months, and I was freaking out, like I didn't actually check any of the data, and I'm not sure this is right. This is not on me, right? And he said to me when he came back, and he said, don't you worry about it. He said, I've been feeling this for years. He said, I hate it when a job comes in from a hairdresser. You've just reinforced what I know intuitively is going on. And I guarantee that's been happening again and again and again. You're going to do these dashboards, and it's going to be a little bit of a letdown for you because the person that you showed is going, oh, I always knew that. But now there's facts about it. A couple of months later, he calls me up to go out to his site. I go out there. He tells me this hilarious story. He said, my sales manager came to me and asking me if I should get my CV redone. Maybe I should go get a new job. And the owner was like, well, why is that? Why should you get a new job? And he said, well, we're going out of business, aren't we? Like, there's no work coming through the door. And the owner laughed. It was the most profitable month he had had in years, and the place was quiet because they were doing really boring work. When you do signs for university, you're doing 300 exit signs. It's really easy and really boring. So the company didn't have all this hive of activity, but he's making more profit than he ever made before. So the stuff that you saw in this dashboard, this is not me just tinkering with numbers. This is a reflection of the real stuff that you're supposed to be doing with these dashboards. And there's really good case studies of some of like Jordan, who I'm going to mention later on. He's doing some stuff right now that just blows your mind as far as what these things can do for you. Now, I didn't have time to go into details on some of the more sophisticated areas of Tableau, but it's worth noting you can do calculations in Tableau. And why that's, although you can do them in FileMaker before you get to Tableau, you need to know you can do them in Tableau, because if you're doing something like a running sum, you want the thing to change as you're doing your filtering. So if you've got some kind of calculation that needs to change on the fly, you can certainly do that in Tableau, in the free version. For what it's worth, Tableau has relationships. So I've had a few people tell me that the reason they don't use Tableau is because you can't do relationships. Well, it's actually wrong. I mean, I do relationships in FileMaker because I prefer to do it there, but you can do relationships in Tableau. And then the third one is analytics. You can do formulas in Tableau, a little bit like the forecasting formulas that you find in Excel when you're looking at charts in Excel. You can definitely do that. So that really is a summary of kind of the main stuff I wanted to present. I've still got 15 minutes, so I'm going to keep on talking. But what you've seen up until this point is really the kind of main takeaway that I wanted you to get. What I tried to do was I looked at Tableau, I looked at FileMaker, and I said, if I want to try and show people what are the key things, what are the fundamental things you need to know, I feel like that's it right there. That's the fundamental stuff. But, and now it's going to be less people in the audience that are going to be fascinated by this, but if you really want to know a little bit more about this new thing that just came out called the data connector, then I'm going to tell you about it. But before I tell you about it, I need to tell you about this. There's a thing called the BI stack. And what you see on the left are the industry terms for the BI stack. So you have data in lots of different systems, and you extract the data from these different systems, transform it in some way, and then load it up into something like a data warehouse. From that data warehouse, you can do analysis, you can distribute the results, and you can create all these user interfaces. So that's an industry definition of a BI stack, and that's used in Tableau, in ClickView, in Cognos. No matter what tool you're using, you have to obey this in some way. I did a talk once. It feels like we should all drink when I say that. I did a talk once at DevCon about how FileMaker can do every single piece of the stack, and how goddamn cool is that? That's why I love FileMaker so much. And the proof of it's right there. There's the stuff you use FileMaker for to do all those different pieces. And there's a whole talk on that. What's relevant about today is that when you bring Tableau into the picture, is it replaces some of the stuff that you could do in FileMaker, and now you do it in Tableau. And now I struggled for a while to work out how I'm going to do this next piece, which is to explain to you how the Web Data Connector works. I decided to go for no slides. I'm going to do my Italian thing and use my hands, right? Here's how FileMaker Server 16 Tableau Data Connector works. You download the new FileMaker Server 16 onto this computer over here. Let's call that a server. When you download FileMaker Server 16, you get a little file there. It comes with it for free. The file, well, not for free, right? But you know what I mean? The file just turns up with your FileMaker Server 16, and that file is called fm_connector.html. So you've got your FileMaker solution, and it's sitting here on the server. Then you've got this little file called FM Connector. That little file will allow you to do something really magical. You can come over here and open up your laptop in a different country, open up your laptop, download the free version of Tableau, which is the desktop client. So you're running Tableau on your laptop over here, you've got FileMaker Server over here, you point Tableau, not at FileMaker Server, but at this little file. You find this file. You point Tableau at this file, and this file does all the hard work of connecting you live to the data inside of FileMaker. There were tons of sessions yesterday about how you can build this little connector file yourself, so you can actually build your own. But as you've probably heard, FileMaker chose Tableau as their example, if you like. So FileMaker's done all the hard work for you. FileMaker has this file ready to go, and it's always in the same place. So when you install FileMaker Server, you'll find it here. It's normally the name of your host, and then FMI REST Tableau fmconnector.html. And because Johan was helping me with this, we used his company's server, so this is the exact address that you'll see in the video. If you were just to go to a standard web browser and type this address in, you'd still see that same dialog box that you saw from Tableau. So this is just like a web page. So in Tableau, it's just got this like little built-in web browser that goes to that page, and then that file does all the hard work. And so as you saw in the video, once you've loaded that up into Tableau, you just tell Tableau, okay, here's my FileMaker server. I can see all the files on there through this little connector file. Tell me, which database is it that you're interested in? And you type in the database name. Which layout on that database has the information you're interested in? And you tell it which layout. And then you just put in your FileMaker account name and password and hit go. And then it sucks the data into Tableau. And if it's all set up properly and working right, when you're looking at your dashboard, if someone changes the data on your server, when you do something that causes Tableau to refresh, like go to a different layout or click a button or do something, it'll be showing you the information that just changed in real time. And that was it. Does that make sense? Because I spent many more hours trying to work out how to do that than it took me to actually deliver it. There's a couple of things, there's lots of information that I had to wade through and to try and come up with that explanation. And I don't expect you to read any of this. And in fact, it's at the bottom, so you may not be able to see it. But oh my God, there's some critical stuff I need to tell you before you go and have a go at this, other than to go and talk to Johan and his company to see what they did. The thing I've got to tell you is I tried to do this myself. Like I downloaded FileMaker Server and I set it up on my computer over here, and I got Tableau and set it up over here. And I saw the file and I found it and I could get to it with a web browser and all that kind of stuff. But then when I did it in a web browser, it worked great. When I went into Tableau and tried to connect to the little trial one that I just downloaded, I could not get it to work for the life of me. And after cursing and swearing and crying I didn't just go to Johan in the first place, I started looking through, you know, like RTFM. No one uses that anymore. So I went and read the flipping manual. And what I found was this at the very bottom. The Tableau Web Data Connector will not allow importing data from FileMaker Server without a valid custom SSL certificate. So it has to be secure, right? You can't even play with the free version. You can't test it or anything if it's not secure. So that's one thing that's unfortunate about even if you just want to go and play with this and test this. If you want to use the Web Data Connector, you still have to do it over secure data. If you want to just go and import it from CSV or Excel, no problem. You can do that straight away. You don't need to have security to do that. The other thing that I thought was worth mentioning, and I found this as I was kind of trawling through the data, and it's the middle paragraph where it says, this is trial software. everybody? And it's going to expire, and yeah, there's a few people going, oh, okay, I didn't know that, I didn't see that, I didn't see that either until I was kind of looking into it. So it's important to note that when the trial expires, blah, 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 they go on, all guns blazing to this. But if you're going to go and talk to your clients about it or to your colleagues about it, I think it's important for you to maybe just have a bit of a clause in there somewhere where it says, this feature was designated as a trial to gather more customer feedback to help improve the data API. What I will say is that all of the studies have shown, and I mentioned it earlier in the talk, all of the studies have shown that where you want to put your energy when you're building a dashboard is not into the techo-geeky stuff. You want to put all of your energy into the people in the business. Sit there with them with pieces of paper and say, what do you want your dashboard to do? So doing proof of concepts and prototypes and getting everybody involved, that's really where it's all at. And you can use FileMaker Data API and Tableau to do all that kind of stuff. When you want to go into live production, you want to talk to people like Jordan, and I'm going to give you his details at the end of this because there is one gentleman in the room who's gone all guns blazing with this, and he's doing it in a live production environment. So I'll tell you more about him at the end. If you do want some help with this, go to my website, fill in the contact form, tell me what you're doing, or get in touch with me. Really happy to help you if I can. I've joined a platinum FileMaker developer in every time zone. So no matter where you are in the world, if I can't answer the technical stuff, I'll know someone in your time zone who can. So feel free to contact me. The second last thing I'm going to do, we've got just over 5 minutes left. I want to just give you, and FileMaker asked me to do this, and I thought it was a really good idea, just to give you a little bit of a pros and cons, or when would you use FileMaker and when would you use Tableau. First part's really easy. If you're doing any kind of data entry, forget about Tableau, right? Like FileMaker is where you do data entry, so they're not comparative in that sense. So do all your data entry in a FileMaker system for sure. But if we just wanted to start talking about reporting, then it gets a bit more interesting. Would you use FileMaker to do reporting, or would you use Tableau? So when it comes to the ETL, which is the extract, transform, load, and John Ward, is he here? Yeah, so I was talking to him last night about this. He was the one that said, I don't do this stuff, I'm not technical enough, but I'm sexy, and I don't think he meant it in that way. I think he meant, in the right way. He was saying that I didn't stress enough. Well, he came to one of my earlier sessions and has done some really cool visualizations, and he said I didn't stress enough how hard the ETL was, because you go away from this thing, oh, this is great, and you can use my sample data, fine, that'll work on Monday, you can build the whole dashboard. But then when you want to do this for real, you've got to take data from all these different places and try to get them into one file, and that's called ETL. And he said that he went away and built the dashboard in the first day, and then he spent the next, I don't know, what was it, John, like the next 3 months doing the ETL, trying to bring the data together to make it this nice, clean little thing. So don't underestimate ETL. You can do it in Tableau. It's quite sexy, actually, and very simple. You can tell Tableau to go to an Excel spreadsheet. Tableau will try to work out what your headings are and where the data is, and it'll suck it in. So Tableau does a pretty good job of it, but I'll still use FileMaker because I find FileMaker way more powerful, way more sophisticated, and I want to kind of be in there knowing what's going on. So I still use FileMaker for the ETL, but you can use Tableau. No surprises if it's charting. I'm sorry, but Tableau wins, hands down. If you're looking at really large data sets, I want to say Tableau wins, and Tableau is designed for big data. But as you all know, well, at least as many of you would know, you can go real big in FileMaker if you do the right indexing. So index your data properly in FileMaker, and you can use pretty big data sets. But I'd still have to give this one to Tableau. If you've got huge amounts of data, then Tableau is probably the place to be working. If you want to do dashboards or storyboards, obviously Tableau wins that, hands down. If, however, you're going to do a dashboard app like my One Business app, where I'm really anal and I want to control every single pixel on the screen, guess what? I jump out of Tableau and I go back into FileMaker. In FileMaker, you can control the UI a lot more than you can in Tableau. You can do Tableau layouts for iPhones and the rest of it. And then finally, with 3 minutes left to go, if you're going to do artificial intelligence or chatbots, then FileMaker definitely wins. And I mentioned right at the start that if we had time, 3 minutes is enough, I was going to jump into the future and look back at today. And I think the way to do that is to show you a chart that I think proves you want to be getting your head around this stuff, right? You really want to be getting your head around it, because I think, as I said, I watched I was there before computers, and I saw what happened when computers came out. I was there before the internet, and I was doing really expensive websites with very cheap software in my early days of building websites, because I knew companies are going to want websites, right? Well, you didn't need rocket science. When the iPhone came out, I was like, oh, okay, forget about desktops. That's what smartphones are obviously the way to go. There's something that is just as plainly obvious to me today, and it's not like about to happen, it's already started happening. It started happening in January this year, and I've got a chart to show you this. Artificial intelligence has kicked off. There's a company called CB Insights. What they do is they aggregate search data from people that are looking, they're trying to work out where they're going to invest their hard-earned cash. So if I'm interested in what the business community is talking about, I go to CB Insights. And I always compare, I compare dashboard, FileMaker, business intelligence, any terms that I'm looking to kind of market, I go and compare them to iOS and iPhone, because iOS and iPhone is always really strong when people are interested, what is your company doing with Apple? So like everything else, I compared AI with those two terms. And up until about 2016, obviously, iPhones and iOS was winning hands down. Then something happened in the middle of last year, and I felt it, like Mars. A year ago, there's no way a large company would come to me and say, can you build artificial intelligence for my factory? Like, never would have happened a year ago, but it happened this year. And it's been happening across all my clients. All of a sudden, people are interested in AI, and I'm like, gee, what's going on? This is not like anecdotal evidence from my clients. This is a chart that says when people are searching for where they're going to invest their money, in January 2017, they were more interested in AI than they were in iOS and iPhones. And anyone who's interested in trends, will you look at the angle on that line? It's not 45 degrees, right? So AI is more interesting to a lot of people than iOS and iPhones. So I truly believe that what we're about to see is the biggest disruptive technology of any of our lives, and it is already just starting to begin. PricewaterhouseCoopers have gone on record as saying, I've got to read this one out because this blew my mind as well, so you don't have to trust me. They reckon that AI will contribute as much to the global economy in 2030 as all of India and China combined today. So there's a lot of people talking about AI, and the concepts that you've learned today are setting you up perfectly to get engaged with artificial intelligence. So if you don't agree with what I'm saying, then you just kind of forget about the talk. If this is resonating with you, then I'm suggesting about 3 steps. On Monday, go and build a dashboard with Tableau and use my free sample data. You can follow the video to do that. Then build the dashboard again, but use your own data. And then finally, use that same data, grab FileMaker, and build Andy's disposable artificial intelligent app. And then please, 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 please tell me all about it. And if you need some help with it, then get in contact with me, because I really want to get involved with the FileMaker community in building artificially intelligent apps. That's it for the talk. Thank you very much for turning up at the Hangover session. There will be updates, and I'd ask that you please fill in the session evaluation forms. I'm going to hang around, so if you want to come up and ask some questions. If you're a long way down the track with Tableau, then Jordan Watson is doing a talk at 2:15 today, and he's gone further than anyone I know with Tableau. And if you're interested in the FileMaker side of things, then Johan Hedman from Atatiki, who's right at the front here, knows all about it. Thank you very much.
Hi.
Hey.
Jeff Camille, that was
hey.
great.
Thank you. I'll turn this off.